Good morning, class. This is your English teacher, Sir Sanjay. I welcome you all to yet another session of online classes. In fact, this will be the explanation of lesson number 7 for your English Honeysuckle text. The poems whichever were left out will be explained all together in next YouTube session if possible. Poems substance will also be discussed. You do not have to worry. See, what I'll do is I'll explain this lesson thoroughly, and at the end of the lesson what you are going to do is, at the end of this class, basically what you are going to do is go through this lesson once again in a very prompt manner. Whichever words are difficult for you to understand or to relate with, what you can do is you can list them down, write them down, and using dictionary find out the meaning of those words, and then learn them by heart, use them in the form of sentence in order to enhance your vocabulary. Point number 1. Point number 2, try making question and answers of this lesson on your own if you can. And if anybody has any kind of doubt pertaining to making question and answer of this lesson, what we are going to do is I'll be uploading question and answer notes of this lesson or offer my guidance and help in making the question. Okay. So without any further ado, let's begin today's lesson. Before we read, there'll be a brief preface to the lesson as to what will be read ahead. I'll read that too to make things clear. Okay. So what does it say? Let's find out. It says, has your best friend. Who's your best friend? Best friend is someone who you consider better than the rest. Someone you can share your feelings with. Someone who will stand with you through thick and thin and through difficult times. Someone you can bank upon. Someone you can trust easily. Okay. So, has your best friend ever done something you thought was wrong? Did he ever do something you thought it was wrong? Something he shouldn't have done against you? Or with you telling him not to do it? Has it happened ever? What did you do then? What was your reaction? Were you angry? Did you take it peacefully? Did you retaliate or did you stop speaking with him? So and so. Did you keep quiet or did you tell your friend what you thought? So this is what they are asking. Did you keep quiet after a fight or whatever has happened? Or did you tell your friend, that you were feeling terrible? So our story will be based on similar plot, let's say, or similar thought line to be precise. We'll have to read this story about two friends who, had to decide what was important, whether friendship was important or whether enmity was important, to be fierce competitors, to hate each other was important, or a sense of duty, responsibility, or and to stand by what is right was more important. So two friends will be in crossroads as they had to make tough decision as to what they should be choosing in their life. Okay, so this story will be based on this. Before we begin, I'll tell you the name of these two friends will be Jumman Sheikh and Algu Chaudhry. Okay, these two would be best of friends living in a village. They'll share things and they will be like a family only. But then few things will happen which will create some sort of enmity between them. How or under what circumstances thing will change or will they change at all? After reading the story, we'll find out. Okay, it will be divided into few parts. Let's start studying. What is the name of the lesson? Fair play. What do you mean by fair? To be fair means to be right, isn't it? Fair play here means to stand by right and deliver justice in a by standing for what is right. Okay, so let's start. So, fair play, part 1, here we go. Jumman Sheikh and Algu Chaudhary. I'm reading paragraph 1 clear. Jumman Sheikh and Algu Chaudhary were good friends. So strong was their bond. Bond means the strong relationship that they share. So strong was their bond of friendship that when either of them went away from the village, the other looked after the village. Both were greatly respected in the village. Okay, so we are talking about two important persons here, two good friends, best of friends, Jumman Sheikh and Algu Chaudhary. They had a very strong bond between them. They were best of friends. The bond between them was so strong that when either of them left the village, when either of them left the village, the other used to look after the village. Sorry, when either of them used to leave the village, the other one used to look after the family of the one who left the village. Okay, they were good humans and they were greatly respected in the village as well. Okay, so moving on. Para 2. Jumman had an old aunt who had some property. Okay, we are reading about Jumman now, getting into details about Jumman. So, Jumman had an old aunt who had some property. This, sorry, just a second. Yeah, almost there. Wait. Yeah. So, this she transferred to him on the understanding that she would stay with him and he would look after her. The arrangement worked well for a couple of years. Couple means two. Okay. So what happened is Juman had an old auntie, who had some property. So what did Juman's aunt do with the property that she owned was she transferred it in the name of Jumman. Okay. So Jumman's aunt had what? Had property. Okay. What did she have? She had property. And what did she do with this property? She transferred it. What did she do? She transferred it. In whose name? In Jumman's name. But there was an understanding, an agreement. Okay. Like if someone gives you something, there'll be some sort of agreement, right? So before transferring her property to Jumman's aunt made an agreement, an understanding between Jumman and her. And the understanding was Jumman would take great care of her. Clear? So things went pretty well. Things went wonderfully well for how many years? For a couple of years. What do you mean by couple? I told you. Yeah. Things went wonderfully well for a couple of years. That is, for 2 years, things went on quite smoothly. But repercussions would start at the end of 2 years. How and in what manner? Let's read and find out. Okay. Then the situation changed. Jumman and his family were tired of their old relative. Jumman became as indifferent to her as his wife, who grudged even the little food that the old lady wanted every day. She swallowed these insults along with her food for a few months. But patience has its limits, right? Patience has its limits. So this is what happened. For 2 years, things were quite smooth. But at the end of 2 years, Juman's and his wife's behavior towards her aunt changed completely. They had a change in behavior towards her aunt. How was it different? What changes were there? I'll tell you. They grudged. Grudged means what? To show anger. Clear? They grudged even the little food that the old lady wanted every day. Means they were angry even to provide her 2 squares of meal that she wanted on a daily basis. Clear? His wife also used to insult her. See, insulting, making fun, and disliking someone to an extent is acceptable, but then there is a limit for everyone, right? So the aunt kept swallowing this insult for a few months, but everything has its limit. When she felt like she could no longer take it, she would do something, of course, right? But what would she do? Let's find out by reading the following paragraph. Okay, so see, para 3. Here we are, beginning with one day. Okay, just give me a moment. Yeah. So one day she spoke to Juman. My son, it is now obvious that I am not wanted in your house. Kindly give me a monthly allowance so that I can set up a separate kitchen. So her limit was up, and in anger and desperation, she said to Juman, Juman, it is obvious, means very clear. It is very clear that I'm no longer wanted in your house. You do not want me to live in your house in any way now. So it is wise for me not to continue living in your house. So here's the deal, aunt said to Juman. Please arrange a separate kitchen. What was the demand? To arrange a separate kitchen. She demanded Juman that a separate kitchen be arranged for her so that she could cook her own food and live peacefully. Clear? What would Juman reply? She says, my wife knows best how to run the house. Be patient. He said, don't worry. My wife knows how to run the house. She'll take care of things. Said Jumman shamelessly. So Jumman seemed total shameless with the way he was speaking to the old lady. Okay, she said, don't worry, aunt. Just keep living the way you're living. My wife knows how to handle things. She'll take care of the rest. Okay. So this particular statement, this made the aunt very angry. This statement made the aunt even more angry. And then she decided to take her case to the village panchayat. Alright. This was the moment where she decided to take her case to the village panchayat so that it would be heard by people, and then they will give their verdict on whether or not she was right, on whether or not she deserved justice. So what is panchayat, if you ask me? Panchayat is the set of 5 people who are usually looked after to give the right verdict in case of any conflict, fight, or differences between two different parties. It could be two different people within family, within caste community, over issues like land, personal issue, these and that. There could be many things. Anything and everything that is not solved within family or between individual happening in a village is looked after by panchayat. Panchayat is a set of 5 members. They sit together by calling out a meeting, and then the matter in dispute or matter of dispute is being discussed and a solution is sought after. Yeah. So the best way for the aunt to get justice in this case was to go to the panchayat, and that is what she did. She decided to go to the panchayat so that her case would be heard. Okay. So what would happen next? Let's find out. Here we are. For many days, the old lady was seen talking to the villagers, explaining her case and seeking their support. Clear. Since the old lady was, in a way, fully dependent upon the panchayat to give the verdict in her favor because she was right. As an old lady, she deserved care, love, and respect, which she wasn't getting. And her sole property was named named to whom? To Jumman. Jumman owned her property now, and as such, she was helpless in a number of ways. So, she made an attempt to explain her case to the villagers so that it would help her in future. Clear? She was seeking their support. She was asking them to support her. So some sympathized with her. Some were very sorry to hear her case. They sympathized with her. They were like, "Oh, we are so sorry to hear your case. It shouldn't have happened. We feel very bad. This and that." So they were kind of sympathetic towards her. Others laughed at her. Others were laughing. Ah, leave it. We are not interested in this case. They laughed at her. And a few others advised her to make it up. And a few others advised her to make it up with her nephew and his wife. So different people gave different suggestions. Some were sympathetic, some laughed at her, and the others gave up gave her the suggestion to make it up with her nephew and his wife. And they were suggesting her to patch up, come to a point of solution without taking the case to panchayat, is what some people were suggesting. Yeah. So she was getting variable answer. At last, what did she do? She came to Algu Chaudhary. Do you remember this name, children? Algu Chaudhary. Algu Chaudhary and Jumman Sheikh are best of friends. So his aunt now comes to Algu Chaudhary, the best friend of Jumman Sheikh, and she spoke to him. Also Algu will say, Chachi, Jumman is my best friend. How can I go against him? So Algu said, how can I go against him? He's my best friend. He'll be offended. But is it right, my son, to keep mum and not say what you consider just and fair? So she said, is it right on your part to keep quiet when you observe someone doing something wrong against me? Would you keep quiet and observe an old lady getting insulted? Is what the old lady replied to him, to Algu's remark that how could he go against his best friend? Okay. But is it okay? Come to the panchayat and speak the truth, she said. So she said, I invite you to come to the panchayat and speak the truth. Algu didn't reply. Algu was in a spot of bother because on one side it was his best friend, on the other it was an old lady who was right because she was being insulted and she was helpless. So Algu didn't reply, but her words kept ringing in his ears. Means her words were so stark that they kept him thinking, as to what he should be doing. Alright. So I think it's clear up to here. Right. So let us take up part 2 as well. Just give me a moment. Yeah. So part 2, para 5. Okay. Here. Yeah. The panchayat was held the same evening under an old banyan tree Juman stood up and said, "The voice of the punch is the voice of the god. Let my aunt nominate the head punch. I will abide by her decision." Okay. So on the said day, the panchayat was held under an old banyan tree. It usually happens in the shade of a large tree, which is cemented all round, and the punches usually sit on top of the tree, with the villagers taking their place just under the tree, listening to the proceedings and the development of the proceeding, with both parties keeping their opinion clear. On the day of the on the day this case was supposed to be taken up, the punch, they came and sat over the banyan tree, and then Juman stood up and said again, he said, "The voice of the punch is the voice of God." Means whatever the punch will would speak in this case would be taken up as final verdict given by God. Let my aunt nominate the head punch. I will abide by her decision. So he went on to give her the opportunity to nominate the head punch, and he also said that he will abide by her decision, means he will obey or simply get commanded by whatever was decided. Okay. So class, with this we come to conclusion of today's explanation. What I'll do is I'll take up the rest of explanation tomorrow. I'll explain the remainder of the chapter tomorrow, and will also take a quick glance at the exercises. I'll quickly revise them, rehearse them, and then we'll get through this chapter as well this man. Okay. Thank you everyone for being part of this class. It was wonderful to be sharing my experience of this lesson with you all. Thank you.